So, what better way to relax than by listening to audiobooks about murder? Hi, my name is Moana, and I am a reading and writing lover who disliked English class as both a student and as a teacher, and I am now documenting my journey on rediscovering my love for words here in BookTube. In my last video, I read Shakespeare's Macbeth, and although I enjoyed the story, reading the original text made my brain tired, so I decided to take a break from the serious academic reading and switch to something a little bit lighter and fun. And so what better way to relax than by listening to audiobooks about murder? Is that kind of strange? Well, in my Instagram feed, an ad popped up for both a Kindle and Audible version of an Amazon original series of short murder mysteries that are completely free to Amazon Prime subscribers. And I grew up reading Nancy Drew and have always loved cozy mysteries, so I thought that I would give these a try. Now, I've noticed that there seems to be some controversy here on BookTube about whether or not listening to audiobooks counts as reading, but in my opinion, listening to an audiobook can definitely count as reading. As an English teacher, I've learned that there is a lot of research to show that listening to audiobooks provides similar cognitive benefits that you would get reading printed books yourself. And these include vocabulary development, reading comprehension, and critical thinking skills. There's also a lot of research that shows that people have different learning styles. And while some people learn better reading words on paper, there are others who learn and process information more easily through auditory learning. And honestly though, here on BookTube, I think the vast majority of us are really reading for fun. So I don't see any problem with listening to an audiobook instead of reading an actual book, as long as you are enjoying yourself and having a great time. Each story is no more than 60 minutes, so it's almost like watching a mystery TV show, except just in audiobook form. The first story that I started off with was called Staged by El Cosimano. And this was a story of a young woman who is a new realtor and is trying to sell a house. And she hires a hot neighborhood playboy to do the landscaping, but the day turns deadly and she ends up having to deal with solving a murder. To be honest, I didn't care much for this story, and it almost made me quit listening to the whole series. The story was very much written in like a chick flick type of way, where the women can't stop drooling over the hot guy. And there's also another handsome man who seems to have this alpha type personality, and the main character can't seem to stop him from getting under her skin. But if you like chick flicks, then this might be a good story for you. It's just not my preference, but I'm not going to say that it's a bad story because I think it was just not to my taste, and that's okay. It's not you, it's me. So I'm glad that I didn't stop at that story though, because I found the second one that I listened to be really interesting. The Nosy Neighbor by Nita Prose is about an elderly woman who spends most of her time staring out the window of her home and observing the comings and goings of all of her neighbors. And towards the end of the story, I started to feel really irritated with this character because she seems so incompetent. But there was a sudden twist in the story that was completely unexpected, and I ended up finding it really entertaining. It actually reminded me of the classic TV show The Twilight Zone, or maybe even similar to episodes of Black Mirror on Netflix, where the story takes a turn and you're left in both shock and horror. So I definitely recommend this one. I'm starting to feel like there's this pattern with these stories where I don't like one, then I like the next, only to dislike the next one after that. Crime of Fashion by Emma Rosenblum takes place at a photo shoot in New York for Elle magazine. And now I just finished watching Sex and the City again last week, and this story has similar vibes of high fashion and luxury brands. There's no murder in this one, but instead a very expensive necklace goes missing, and the protagonist has to find it in order to clear her name and protect her career. I actually found this story to be a bit boring, and it reminded me of the 2-minute mystery stories that I used to read as a kid, where the answer to the mystery comes out of nowhere and the good characters end up with a very convenient happy ever after. And so maybe it was just missing a lot of details because it was written to be a short story, and it could have been much better played out if it had been written as a full-length novel. Continuing on with my pattern of dislike and like, I really enjoyed The Reunion Dinner by Jessie Q. Sutano. This story is about a Chinese American family getting together to celebrate Chinese New Year. After the celebration dinner, one of the guests falls dead and it's found that she was poisoned by someone there. The story was really twisted and it definitely wasn't the happy family story that I was expecting. We end up finding out that there are a lot of messed up things that have happened with this family in regards to the person who was murdered. These included things like infidelity and betrayal, and there are multiple people who could have wanted the person dead. So it always keeps us guessing until the very end. I was actually disappointed when it was over because it was one of those stories that I got so invested in that I didn't want it to end. At the same time, I thought that the pacing was excellent for a short story and it didn't leave me unsatisfied like the way that Staged and Crime of Fashion did. This story was my favorite so far out of the series and I definitely recommend it. The next story was One Lucky Subscriber by Kelly Garrett. This one takes place in a mall where a large YouTuber, who is kind of like Mr. Beast, gathers up several young people from around the country, many of them who are also YouTubers themselves. They all receive suitcases with $50,000 in each one, and they basically play hide and seek the whole night. If they can get through the night without getting found, they get to keep the money in the suitcase. But if they're caught, they're disqualified and have to leave immediately. I feel like this story would be better suited toward a younger audience, especially because it seems like Mr. Beast's audience is probably a lot younger, and the characters in the story were also of that young demographic. I don't really have much to say, and I think it's probably because it just wasn't a very memorable or thought-provoking story to me. It kind of like just happened, and then that was it, and I forgot about it. Very interestingly, the last story in the series that I read turned out to be my favorite one. A Classic Case by Alicia Thompson centers around the regular customers of a classic film rental shop. The same customers show up every week, and when one of them fails to show up, another customer gets suspicious and investigates his disappearance. Out of all of the stories, I think this one was the most surprising. Halfway through, it seems really typical and predictable of any missing person's mystery, but there is a twist at the end which led to a really delightful ending. This story made me smile, and if I had to recommend only one short story out of this whole series, this would be the one. I think overall, even though there were some stories that I didn't really care for in this series, I'm glad that I read, or rather, listened to all the audiobooks. For these stories, I actually recommend listening to the audiobooks over reading them because it gave me a chance to hear the different styles of narration, and it brought the voices of each character to life in a way that might not have been possible if I had read the words myself. Listening to these stories was a really nice, entertaining break from the more serious reading that I had been doing, and because each story was short at about an hour each, it felt similar to watching a TV show. If you're interested in checking the Busybodies series out, I will leave a link in the description so that you can either read or listen to it yourself. It's free for Amazon Prime subscribers, so if you do check it out, I would love to hear what you think about it and which story turned out to be your most favorite. For my next video, I'm going to be reading and sharing my thoughts on 100 Years of Solitude by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. And I have been waiting for this audiobook for what seems like forever, and I was finally notified by my Libby app that it is available for me to download, so I can't wait to get started. If you're interested in that book and want to continue to follow me along my reading journey, make sure that you subscribe to my channel. Thank you so much for watching this video. I am super excited to go on this journey with you, so see you next time. Bye!